Good morning, gang. Happy Friday morning. All right, well, y'all know this. 90% of what happens in the world, we never know about, okay? I mean, what Washington or the Pentagon or anybody tells us, is just what they want to know. I mean, hell, more than half the murders in the United States never get reported because, they don't fit the narrative, right? But oh my God, this one's perfect. We can talk about how racist Whitey is. Get all those, right? But, any of the other ones, forget it. If we only know 10% of what's going on, the 10% that's going on right now that is reported should worry the crap out of us, all right? If you start combing through information on the internet, thank God for the internet, because otherwise we'd all be completely in the dark, because God knows the media wouldn't tell us anything, okay? You might not know how much closer we are getting to World War III. Yeah, I'm serious, okay? Let's look at what was reported overnight, all right? Let's start with this one. Russian warships are coming to the Caribbean next week. Supposedly, they will not be nuclear armed, but they're making trips to apparently Cuba and Venezuela. Yeah, okay. If they're bringing ships, my guess is there's going to be submarines along with, which have a tendency to have missiles on them. Okay. Speculating. Just knowing a little bit about strategy, yeah. Because when you're sailing in or around hostile waters, you are going to protect whatever you got. I don't know, does the Cuban Missile Crisis ring a bell to anybody? Just saying. Why all of a sudden are we going to have a naval flotilla practically off the coast of Florida for a while? I don't know. Could something be up? Okay. Well, let's talk about the other part. All of a sudden, on, what was it, the 4th, Tuesday, and yesterday, the U.S. test-fired 2 unarmed, just give you this, Minuteman III missiles. Fired them from California, landed 4,200 miles away in the Marshall Islands. Okay. No, they weren't armed. We're not nuking the Marshall Islands. But why are we test firing these missiles all of a sudden? There have been many, 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 many times that we have canceled any sort of test firing in the last couple of years because of current tensions with Russia. And all of a sudden in the last couple of days, we did test fire 2 missiles. Let's see what they do. Start doing the math, what's 4,200 miles away? Okay? Just saying. Germany. This is a big one. A lady by the name of Marie Agnes Strack-Zimmermann, who is the chair of the Bundestag Defense Committee, has called for the immediate induction of 900,000 German reservists to active duty because of the threat from Russia. Russia has come out and said that the Russian Federation will retaliate against the United States for any destruction, any attack on Russia with U.S. weapons. Mind you this, Joe said earlier this week that Ukraine was now free to use U.S.-made weapons to attack Russia. I want you to think about this. We have said many times that Joe wants a war because then he can put us in martial law and cancel the elections. You all know, many of you said it, we're not going to have elections. You all know I have a feeling that we are going to see them canceled. You all know Joe is dying for a war. He's been begging for one. You know, it's why he's so intent on supporting Ukraine. He needs a war. You know, why he's playing both sides against the middle in the Middle East. He needs a war. Joe wants the Democrat Party, because Joe ain't the one pulling the strings, okay? They want a war. Not a civil war, not a race war, not something domestically. They want a world war. Now, I talked about yesterday about the Daigle report. And I want you to think about what happens if we go to war. Just simply put, what's going to happen. And I'm not talking about the will your kids, will your grandkids get drafted and sent off to the meat grinder, okay? I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about when all of a sudden you're sitting on the front porch having a cup of coffee and all of a sudden a missile goes streaking overhead. I'm talking about when you turn on the news when you get up in the morning and there's troops that are in a fight in the halls of Congress, or they've taken over the White House or Wall Street. What is your plan? What are you going to do? Chances are, like me, a lot of you will have some advanced notice of what's going on. I mean, unless you live in Washington, D.C., or Minot, North Dakota, or, you know, somewhere that is going to be a first strike area, you're going to have a little bit of notice. What are you going to do in those first hours? Rallying the troops, getting family home is probably the number one thing. But what's your plan after that? Sure, you'll have weapons at the ready, but if we get attacked by a foreign adversary, our semi-automatic modern sporting rifles aren't going to be a whole lot of match to potentially armored vehicles and specialized troops. Okay. What if it's an EMP and everything goes down? Most of us are probably relatively prepared for that, okay? Fortunately, having food, having water, doing the basics, we've got that taken care of. We'll be one of the ones that make it through the first year, as long as you can fight off all the bad guys who didn't do anything and they decide they want your food, your house, your water, whatever, and you're going to have to fight back for them. But chances are starvation won't be the reason that we die. Do you have your medicines ready? Do you have a stockpile, especially if you were on life-saving medicine? Okay, again, we go back to 1 Second After and John Matheson's daughter and diabetes. Okay, do you have some sort of refrigeration? Do you have some sort of excess stockpile of insulin or whatever other medicine you need? Because when that runs out, those people are gone. Okay. What's your plan? I've talked about here recently about going through the neighborhood and seeing who's flying a Trump flag, who's flying a Biden flag. Those are the people you're going to want to get to know. You should have a at least mental list, if not a written list, because if something happens to you, maybe your wife, your kids, whatever, don't know what you know, your husband, okay? Maybe a written list of who's potentially friend and who's potentially foe. Because all of a sudden, you're going to have to coordinate with those people quickly. Have you given thought to this? Storing food, growing our food, having bandages and, first aid kit, that's a good start. But when this shit hits the fan, which every day looks like we're getting closer. I mean, come on. Russian warships off the coast of Florida, Germany wanting to put nearly 1 million reservists to work, firing off ICBMs. Is anybody paying attention? If we only know 10% of what's going on, what's the other 90? Okay? I don't think the American public or the Canadian public, or the European public realizes the razor's edge we are walking on right now, and how close we are to Armageddon. And the funny part is, if you ask most people, they'd blame it on Putin. If you asked anybody with a brain, they're going to blame it on Biden and Zelensky. Because honestly, if we'd have kept our nose out of this damn Ukraine war, it'd have been over 2 years ago. Russia would have steamrolled Ukraine. That would have been it. And, gee, I'm sorry, you didn't do anything to bolster your defenses 10 years after you were attacked the last time. I'm sorry. Maybe you don't deserve to be a country anymore. People going to be pissed at me about that comment? Sure. Okay. Don't care. Borders change. Countries come and go throughout history. Go look at a map of Europe in 1924, 100 years ago, and look at a map today. Gee, the Ottoman Empire? Yugoslavia? Where are those? Countries rise and countries fall. That's happened throughout history. Whoever is smoking crack, besides Hunter, thinking that the world's perfect, the map is exactly the way it's going to be. No. China wants Taiwan. Hamas wants Israel. Pick anything in Africa, okay? The borders change there daily. There aren't a whole lot of stable places in the world. Never have been, okay? Can anybody name a time in history where there hasn't been a conflict somewhere? I mean, hell, India and China are going at it on their border. Pakistan and India always going at it. The U.S. has got their thumb up everybody's rear end trying to play worldwide police. Eventually that pisses off everybody. You know, again, if you go back to this, at points in history, Iran was our ally. China was our ally. Russia was our ally. Memories last forever. Countries remember who screwed them over and hold grudges for generations. How many countries out there do you think are pissed at the U.S.? How many countries out there do you think are going to go, we're going to back Russia against the United States? Go read the comments section on a lot of the foreign news sources under articles. There's a lot of hatred of the United States. It's not because of anything you or I did. It's because of the uniparty in Washington and the warmongering for their own profit that they've done. The problem is, when the missiles start flying, when the troops start landing, when Red Dawn happens, okay, you and I are the ones that get to pay the price, while all the people that caused all this disaster are hiding in a mountain in Cheyenne, Wyoming. Think about that. Pinball out.